Welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal Round podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 1. And today we feature Dr. Nolan Fontaine. Dr. Nolan Fontaine, who is my ADP from Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, New Sigma chapter. And of course, Dr. Nolan Fontaine recently was awarded his Doctor of Education from the University of Toronto in Canada. We are extremely delighted and happy to have him here with us. But just before we have Dr. Nolan speaks, I would like you to know that the Neoliberal Corporation is celebrating 1 year, and the Neoliberal Round is one of the services or the programs of the Neoliberal Corporation. 1 year ago, we started out with a couple of seeds. We've reached and touched over 50,000 people through our book, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance, and various journals, scholarly articles and newsletters, news commentaries, and blogs, podcasts, and digital channels, our various social media feeds and websites, theneoliberal.com, RenaldoCMcKenzie.com, and so on, editorials, articles and essays, lectures and presentations, educational and leadership resources and materials, mentoring and community engagements, professional services including writing, paper service, research and independent publishing services. Now we are adding hosting and website services as we have incorporated ANT's Business Solutions into our core business, providers of high-speed share and VPS web hosting for services and mobile applications, in addition to inventory management. We're doing great, and we will keep growing as we seek to reach and touch over 10 million in 5 years with our added services, current research and book projects that's about to come out, and our annual academic journal, and towards developing an academic journal towards Caribbean perspectives and Pan-African perspectives, and our programs towards facilitating the human development of human capital among the most vulnerable and bring awareness to issues in the world. We never expected to get so far in just 1 year, but with your support, we will. Hence, we are focused on developing these key areas as we seek to respond to the demand and open markets for our books and services, and as we seek to continue to increase our visibility, expand and streamline our digital media, web application capabilities, services and platforms, to take advantage of technology leveraging, to maximize our revenue potential and reach. So we're focused on one, capacity building, which is staffing, VPS server to control products and services, market and distribution to meet demand and supply, so on and so forth, of our books and so on. And for web application software to handle increased customer demand. Actually, my IT director said to me yesterday, Ronaldo, the website is attracting a lot of viewers. We need a VPS so as to take more control. Secondly, we want to focus on research, staffing, market and distribution of dissertation book project at Georgetown, and developing and publishing of the annual journal, academic journal, towards developing a journal of Caribbean and diaspora perspectives towards meeting the UN SDG 2030 goal. And of course, there's leveraging technology, thirdly, and network marketing, distribution and copyright protection of our already published book and those that we already have out. Of course, there's studio equipment and office space, and there's also IT, cybersecurity, privacy, trademarks, and legal. We're focused on that and those so that we can serve the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges. Because as I say, we are a think tank, news commentary, digital social media, independent publishing company that provides high-speed web hosting services and mobile applications solutions to businesses. We are on the cutting edge of change. We are dynamic because we are about making popular what was the monopoly and providing a platform to provide awareness. This is the Neoliberal Round, brought to you by the Neoliberal Corporation. We'll be right back after these messages. We are talking with Nolan Fontaine, who actually my fraternity ADP, was my fraternity brother from Phi Beta Sigma, who recently got his doctor, is it Doctor of Education? Doctor of Education from EDD from the Toronto University? Or?
No, that is University of Toronto's Ontario Institute for Studies and Education.
There we go. And you guys might have heard me talking about him, and I've been saying the wrong thing. In fact, you might have heard me say Ontario/Toronto because I wasn't sure. But he's here with us, live in studio. And we weren't supposed to be doing the interview today, but we're just wrapping today, and we were talking about the Neoliberal Corporation business plan because we just submitted there's an investment company in UAE and they are interested in us, and they asked us to submit a business plan, and we had some initial conversations, and they liked it, and I submitted a more fulsome one. So we're talking, and we're sharing it with him about the Neoliberal Corporation, what we're about, and the content of the business plan. But we're just having a wrap session today. But we're happy to have him in studios with us at the Neoliberal Corporation. We have not had a podcast since the one on small business because I've been working hard at trying to relaunch our company and working on some new projects and investments that's supposed to be starting anytime soon. But welcome, guys. We have Mr. Dante Nelson. And you might have heard him some time ago on this podcast. And we have with us, of course, my ADP, my former ADP, who is now my fraternity brother. Welcome aboard, sir.
I just appreciate you inviting me to this first think tank.
Yes.
Just to flesh out some ideas, and it'd be good to have a brain hurricane session, and flesh out some things.
Yes, and listen, guys, this is a grassroots company. And I said to you, what makes us unique? We're close to the stories. We are close to the stories. Not only are we in the boardrooms, not only are we in the hall, the institution, academic institution, but we're also in the streets. We're everywhere.
We're in the hood. Too.
We're in the
project.
We're in the projects as well, but we are making connections. Yes? And just so you know, for those of us who are just joining this program, we are growing. We are growing. We are actually one of the top ranked podcasts in news commentary, in news commentary in Canada and the US, and we are also, but actually everywhere. We're everywhere, but we're growing, and we hope that you continue to share this this podcast with your friends. The Neoliberal Corporation is a news commentary. It's a think tank. It's a social digital media company with high-speed web hosting and mobile application services, professional services, research services. We have books that's available worldwide in all selections, and we're developing academic journals towards developing a Caribbean perspective, and we also towards sustaining development, the 2030 SDG goal. And we're working on a research project in a book, Privilege, Power, Position, Status, and Secrets to Unlocking Divine Intervention. And I will tell you that's no secret. But welcome. Welcome. And you were talking to us about your experience, and there are many people who aspire to becoming great academics and with a mind, and you have a doctorate, and it was no easy task. So we want to know what's next for you. But first, for the people who are listening who want to know what you did to realize, I notice every time I talk to someone, I'm always asking, what did you do to get there? Because we are about providing information. And what is communication? Communication is to make popular what was the monopoly. And there are people who may want to know, how did you get there? How were you able to? I want to know that. I'm doing my doctorate at Georgetown University, and there are financial requirements, and I have to be very creative in terms of how I do that. And there are other requirements. And I did a course, how do you balance life? Or how were you able to get through all that? What's your journey? And what's your life? People want to hear your journey, because I know it's not easy for you. It's a lot.
Yeah, I think those were about 5 questions that you five.
Yes.
What I'm going to break down into bite-sized pieces first is how did I get there?
Yes, tell me.
I got there through my family, through my tribe, through my community. I'm a project boy. I grew up in the housing projects of Chester, Pennsylvania. I'm very open about that. I currently do work there, just like my mother did, just like my grandmother did, just like my great grandmother did. So I'm very community oriented. I'm very connected to family, connected to my tribe. An additional thing that really helped get me there and over the hump, because to kind of fast forward in a Shonda Rhimes kind of fashion, right?
Yes.
To where, after you're done coursework, after you're done research and you're actually working on a dissertation, sometimes you can get stuck in the minutia of editing and making sure that things align up the way they should.
Mm-hmm.
The way my dissertation, a lot of people haven't. Have you ever seen the Disney version of Cinderella?
I have, yes. I have.
I think a lot of people get the interpretation that your dress is supposed to be the dress that Cinderella got from the fairy godmother.
Okay.
No. In terms of giving an analogy to the dissertation, right?
Yes.
No, your dissertation is going to be, from you scrambling around all day, cleaning it up, pitching things, melding things together, and it's going to be the dress that the mice actually piece together from you, with help from your committee, your supervisor, your cultural community, listening to you do the PowerPoint or the Prezi or whatever presentation style, your colleagues that may have defended before you, all of those folks. That's what your dissertation is going to look like. So I give that as an analogy to folks in terms of like that, very like minutia kind of like ABD period that we call that, used to be a little in vogue. Now, back in the days, nowadays, like people don't even want to put ABD in their title because it's considered pretentious and everything, right? So I just wanted to share that.
What's the title of your dissertation?
My Prison Academia.
What is it?
My Prison Academia.
My Prison Academia.
Yes, it's a
that is deep.
It's a comparative curriculum analysis of U.S. and Canadian prison programs, prison higher education programs, and I specifically look at the program Inside Out, which spawned here in Pennsylvania out of Temple University, and SCI Greaterford, which is now SCI Phoenix, and in Canada, which started as Inside Out Canada, and now it's known as Walls to Bridges.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you hope to accomplish from this? Okay, you're finished with your dissertation, and just so you know, there are a lot of people who are, and I'm happy that I'm having this discussion at this juncture. A lot of persons are graduating from colleges and moving to the next level and so on. And so I want to know what's the next what is the next step? And congratulations. What's the next?
I appreciate that.
What's the next step for you?
Honestly, I'm really focused on my family and I'm really focused on my tribe.
Yes.
For such a long time, living in the project, women that have given themselves to our hood, to our project, to our cultural community. Unfortunately, they've been misclassified by this government as Negro, as colored, as black.
Yes.
Those are the titles that were given to my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. And knowing our history as American Indians, it's my job as the family historian, family genealogist, to help get my tribe back in order. And that, for me, is to reorient them with our American Indian heritage, which I've traced back at this point as the family genealogist to pre-America, pre-1776 at this point.
Right.
Of having a consistent, unbroken genealogical tie to this land. So that's very important to me at this point.
Yes.
In terms of making sure that my family has unadulterated access to our family heritage and not educational indoctrination, right? It's a difference.
And what's the difference? I mean, and just so you know, I know you're very. I've spoken to you several times. I don't know if you remember, and every time I talk to you, always talk about the importance of understanding family and who you are. You talk about your lineage, so to speak. But so when you're talking about reorienting them to their lineage and the family genealogy, I think you have to go deep metaphysically. You're going somewhere with this. You mean something deeper than what the average man means, because you said reorienting them. Right. So connected to what do you mean by reorienting them? Or in a sense, you're fixing history, so to speak, or correcting understanding.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's very metaphysical. It's very like fixed in terms of time and space, right? Yes. Because time and space has also been colonized.
Yes. Right? Time and space has been colonized. Nice. I like that.
At least they've tried to. In terms of when I've had to reorient my family in terms of we frequent Delaware a lot because that's where our family's from. There's a very well-known road in Delaware called Naman's Road. Many people don't know that Naman's Road is named after Chief Namans, and that's the paramount chief that I think William Penn had to negotiate with upon, getting that tract of land and designating, okay, this is where the border of Pennsylvania stops and this is where Lenape territory starts.
Wow.
So, just reorienting my family with things like that are everyday common sense things, I'm going down to Naman's Road. Now they know that, these certain roads and geographical mile markers aren't just specific names. They're named after, folks like us, folks that are American Indian.
And you talk about titles too, because earlier, just when you started speaking earlier in the conversation, you alluded to the word title that we were given. And I think you said that deliberately to mean something. So you believe that. Who are you as a person when we?
Who am I as a person?
Yes, outside of the titles that you've been given, based on your understanding of all things.
I mean, if we're looking at this from a philosophical perspective, metaphysically,
that's generally
that changes day by day.
Well, that's true. No, but
that's the goal at least.
Yeah, well,
right?
I shouldn't ask you probably individually because you said that we were titled, but you were reorienting your family into who you are as American Indians. You know what I mean? And some African Americans probably maybe they are American Indians, but they think that they come from the tradition of just one, so you talk about race. But I talk about race being a pseudoscience in the sense that I think we are all one and it was developed. But I mean, what we have is maybe ethnicities in terms of race.
And, me as a sociologist, looking at more like, material rooted.
Yeah.
I guess like utopian sociologists like Blumenbach. Mm-hmm. They would argue that, I'm not necessarily saying I agree with this. I'm just saying, putting on my sociology hat.
Yes.
But, they're the ones that started the classifications in terms of race. And then from there, simple 7th grade science, this is where we get, Linnaeus with the different kingdoms and stuff like, basic stuff like that we were taught in school. And, I think it goes back to my family where like I'm trying to like really undo that.
Right.
In a lot of ways, they're redoing a lot of the broadcasting and programming that I've been given in the academic space too.
That's true.
Academia can be very academically
There's
imperialistic.
There's a lot going on right now. Look what's going on with critical race theory, though. In Florida, they're putting a ban on teaching and so on and so forth, and teaching certain things, curriculum that makes people feel guilt. They say.
Well, I think the blind spot that people aren't talking about or don't want to talk about critical race theory is, no one wants to talk about the white slaves, quote unquote white slaves.
Yes.
No one wants to talk about, Proclamation 1625, where, folks who were, swarthy or, Lou Wilms looking Europeans were expelled from Ireland and sent here to America. No one wants to talk about that aspect of critical race theory. Everyone wants to put this, alleged mile marker of 1619, where as American Indians, we know that folks were coming here in 1585 to Roanoke.
Yes.
We know that the Finns, were coming here and everything. We know that the Spanish, were down in Florida and in California and, Texas and all in those areas and everything.
Yes.
So we know that's only like a specific mile marker for the purposes of, history textbooks like McGraw-Hill.
Listen, man, we're talking with Dr. Nolan Fontaine, and he will tell you, just call me Nolan. And he is deep. And I respect this. I respect this brother. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to the Neoliberal Round podcast. We are speaking with my ADP from Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and of course, my brother and friend and advisor to the Neoliberal Corporation. He will now advise the Neoliberal Corporation, especially in academic and research and content.
Am I?
As well. Yes, you are. He is. He will be our advisor. And but you were making a point. I was telling him that we interviewed John Anthony Castro, who is running for president. And he said he actually had a question for John Anthony Castro, who we will actually try and connect. But and Mr. Castro listens to the show, but you said something about what's going on and what's the question you have for him.
I would love to get his perspective on what's going on in terms of the Michael Sussman trial.
Okay, and what's going on with that?
This is the trial that's currently taking place with Attorney Durham, who published the Durham report, giving us an entry point into knowing that not only was the Trump campaign, spied on prior to 2016, but even during the duration of the presidency from 2016 to 2020. So, those things are being fleshed out in terms of, the Michael Sussman trial that's going on. I just find it interesting in terms of the media that the biggest trial that's kind of eclipsing that right now is Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. So it goes to show you, the level of, access that we're given in terms of, ideological or entertainment. Court proceedings over real, civic-based court proceedings. Led by the people.
And that's great. Yeah, and we haven't had the time to make to do any kind of commentary lately because we've been working on this new story. And I said to you, we're working on a story that I probably spoke about, and I did say I was going to publish it a couple of weeks ago or days ago, but I haven't published it yet, and I apologize to the listeners and to the fans. If you haven't listened to it, I really apologize. Let me tell you what's going on. We've been working on a new project and the relaunch of the Neoliberal Corporation. So we're going to be there's going to be several changes and several big things that we're working on. We've just added Ant Business Solutions and their high-speed web VPS and shared hosting services, as well as we offer mobile application services and inventory management systems to businesses as well. So we've been working on doing a lot of that, and but we will be carrying breaking news for you based on anthropological studies and research, interviews we've had with several people from various cities as it relates to the 2020 US elections and what happened in terms of some of the voting behavior of people as it relates to who voted and if they voted, and how that can create problems, and whether or not certain political figures have some kind of basis in terms of creating the kind of changes that they want to create at the supreme levels in terms of voting and so. But we'll talk more about that. We do not want to reveal too much, but you will hear that later on this week, I believe, or sometime. That breaking news story will coincide with another major announcement that we will have for you when it happens.
That one.
Yes. We're working on some major. This is a grassroots company. This is a think tank, a news commentary, publishing. Listen, guys, you got to get involved in the big thing. And we actually just finished. I finished a 100-page business plan for the Neoliberal Corporation.
I can't wait to get through it.
It is deep. It is intense. And I actually was talking about it with you, and I won't even. This is not the program for it to share it, but we are serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges. And of course, we're about what? Making popular. What was the monopoly? And we're talking with, and we're gonna have Dr. Nolan on the show more regularly. And our hope is to have live studio shows and to provide studio and live access to others and so on and so forth. And the show will continue to be dynamic. Okay, and he has several ideas that we will continue to explore, and of course you will hear him as we will bring him on as a guest when we have group podcast recording and news commentaries, and we're going to open up to the public. We will go live in probably another 30 days or so. But anything else you want to share with us? What's next for you? As you know you're finished with your dissertation, what's next for you?
Lots of things.
Yes. I'm curious to find out. We always celebrate students graduating, but I want to know more, because life has not been easy for me after I left Penn, which is an Ivy League. But I'm still excited about the possibilities, and I'm always planning and thinking about what's next and about the future, and you strive towards that. But what's next for you now that you're finished? You've achieved one major goal.
One thing that's really important for me is ensuring that not only myself, but my family and my cultural community, my project family, are as self-sufficient as they possibly can be. And for me, that's not just buying spaces and perpetuating, the regular, neoliberal kind of like mindset where, yes. I'm going to get an apartment building, I'm going to rent it out for revenue, and live here, or use it to pay for something else. I don't know. Not to say that there's anything the matter with that, because that's the way that our country operates. Like, the United States is traded on the S&P 500, so then there's that, right? Mm-hmm. So my goal is to invest not in only land for myself, not just in land for my family, but also land and in a cooperative sense, as we kind of chuckled about earlier, for my community.
And that's important.
There's a lot of gentrification and big business buying specifically in my community.
The gentrification that's going on everywhere, man. I mean, lately, especially in Philadelphia,
And especially in Chester.
Chester as well?
Absolutely.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Chester's the place of the original Penn's Landing, and it is the territorial land of the Okihakan Indians. So, there's a lot of historical value.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to a lot of folks, mineral value that exists in Chester. So it's time to get our piece of the rock.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be an entrepreneur who's solely self-gratifying, right? Like I'm not at all a pure capitalist.
Yes.
And from living in a socialist country, I can tell you now that I'm not a socialist. So,
You lived in Canada.
I did, which is a social democracy.
Tell me, what you don't like about that?
I don't like that even when provinces have the ability to, institute their own ordinances or their own laws, that the federal government can come in and kind of like supersede that. I think a good snapshot of that was the vaccine passports with the trucker protests.
Yes.
That took place a couple months ago.
Yes.
That was very telling to me in terms of, and the whole Canadian government's response was just, as a researcher,
yes,
very interesting in terms of, the powers and the economic reach.
Yes.
That and the political will that the Canadian government was willing to go, right?
Yes.
So it was really interesting from like a sociological, political, science perspective to me.
Okay.
So going back to like what's next, I think it's very important, like not only, as an entrepreneur to like invest in yourself, it's important to invest in your family.
Right.
And that's ownership. It's important for me to invest in my cultural community.
Yes.
And that also looks like ownership, but shared ownership, right?
Yes.
And I do see some examples of that, right? In terms of communities that do that.
Yes.
And I see no reason why it can't be done in Chester as well.
That is true. So you're going to go back to your community and you're back in your community, and you're going to be working in the community to facilitate investment.
I'm in the hood
and to invest.
I'm in the hood like 4 chicken wings, bro.
Do you have an investment plan?
I'm developing one.
Yeah.
Right now I have a 6-month plan. That's short term. I would at least like to get to a 50, 75 year plan.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
And I realize that the value of having a plan is very important. A plan is very important. And have you thought about investments and so on?
I have on multiple levels. Capital gains.
That's good.
Different types of dividend yielding investments. And I'm new to the entrepreneurial spirit, right? And it's a shift for me because I've been dealing in Canadian, Canadian entrepreneurship, which is very different.
Very different.
U.S. entrepreneurship.
What's the difference?
We don't report to the IRS. We report to the CRA.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, yes.
Yeah, so that's very important up there.
Now, what and in terms of the difference between the IRS and the CRA, what for our viewers and our listeners, what is the distinctive difference there?
I honestly think their tax system is very much more streamlined.
Yes. Okay. Do they do the tax returns and so on at the end of the year? refunds?
They do.
Oh, okay.
They do. That's still very foreign to me, which is why I have like a tax agent, company that I kind of utilize and everything.
Right. Well, we're going to have to have a lot of discussions about what goes on in the Canadian picture, because I know that we have a lot of Canadian listeners, and we appreciate all the Canadians who are listening to the program. I appreciate you very much, and send us the feedbacks. Email us. It's at ronaldomckenzie@theneoliberal.com, or you can give us a call at 267 317-9202. That's the number? 317-9202? Yes, you can give us a call there and donate to the show. Actually, you can become a monthly contributor. The show is free, but we have over 50-something episodes, and we're coming up with something bigger and better. We're about to reach 10 million in 5 years. Join us.
I also want to shout out the U.S., American Indian listeners, and the Canadian, especially my Torontonian listeners, and specifically, my folks of the Anishinaabe, the Seneca, the Ojibwe, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. I do know that I'm missing some specific, First Nation tribes, but I do want to shout, those tribes out, because those are the specific tribes that Toronto, formerly known as Toronto, that's their land.
Oh. and that they were instrumental in terms of your development and so on, or your studies.
Well, absolutely. In terms of, I think I learned more honestly in the Sweat Lodge. Well, I don't want to say that.
What's the Sweat Lodge? We're gonna say no pun intended.
Well, there is indigenous methodology in terms of sharing knowledge, where to indigenous First Nations or American Indian folks, sweating out the impurities in terms of the Sweat Lodge. And sharing knowledge in there was a form of, knowledge sharing, was a form of, what was a type of ontology amongst indigenous peoples, not just in Canada, but also, amongst the Americas and everything. So I will say that, that in congruence with my education at U of T, right? It really dovetail both together to really bring everything full circle.
U of T.
U of T is our acronym or our nickname that we call University of Toronto. So if you hear me say U of T, I'm referring to the University of Toronto.
What was it like? What was it? Have you ever been to, before you left? When did you leave? When was the first time you went to Toronto?
First time I went to Toronto, I believe, was in 2013.
2013, but that was just briefly. That was just for vacation.
It was just for vacation, and I actually had applied for a job at University of Toronto. I knew I probably wouldn't get it, but
yes,
I never been to Canada, and it was cool. It was a cool experience to think, wow, I can fly, less than 2 hours and be outside the country.
Okay, and then you went back to. When did you start your program? When was it the next time you went there?
The next time I went there was probably around the U.S. election.
Was that
the 2016 U.S. election?
Okay. What was fascinating? What did you find fascinating about Canada? And why is it that you wanted to go there to do your studies?
I found that Canada was, in a way, very U.S.-like, and in a way, very not U.S.-like.
Okay, I want to know.
That intrigued me.
Okay, all right. And what was? Okay, tell me some more. Tell me some more about that.
So, all right, one of my cars.
Yes.
Not to sound like elitist or anything.
Okay.
But my old car. is in kilometers.
Okay.
So
and I'm Jamaican, so I know exactly what you mean by that.
I have to be very diligent.
The metric system.
I have to be very diligent in terms of converting that from kilometers back to miles per hour in my head. Especially in certain areas, if you get what I mean, right?
Yes.
Or during certain times of the day or night, right?
Yes.
So I have to be very diligent about that. The same thing in terms of the temperature. Like, I have to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit.
Oh, yes.
Thank God that... Thank you, Miss Lewis, and thank you, Miss Martelli. Like, y'all really helped me. I really listened in class. Those are my 4th grade and 5th grade teachers.
Yeah, what did they say? What happened?
They helped me with the metric system, and I listened.
Yes. Oh,
I got out with it like a C, but I listened.
Yes. I mean, Martin Luther King, I heard, got a C in speech showing his speech class, and he became one of the greatest speakers in the world.
Martin Luther King also came to Chester, Pennsylvania, too. Seminary.
Oh, really?
Yes, he did, at Crozer Seminary.
Yes, you're right.
Great folks come from Chester, PA.
And you're from Chester. Oh, wow.
Okehockin territory.
Well, I mean, there's so much to talk about. We have so much to talk to you about, man. You're giving us so much, and we're gonna have him. He's gonna be featured on the show. In fact, some of the shows you might just hear him interviewing other people, talking with other academics. Yeah, we're gonna bring him on a regular basis to do interviews, to lead some of the podcasts. I will just be producing.
That's a bit much. This your show.
But this is really
the neoliberal.
This is the neoliberal. Yes,
we don't want the American Indian all the time. Like, we're a good balance, though.
Yes, we are a great balance, and it's great to talk to you about your culture, your lineage, talk about what's going on in the world. I actually didn't know much about... I didn't know there was something with Johnny Depp, actually. Yeah, well, what's going on with that?
It's very intriguing. I'm honestly not too deep in, but there's a trial going on between Johnny Depp and his...
yes, it's former
fiance. I think
they were married. Yeah, they were married. Yes.
Yeah, Amber Heard, and it's taking place here in America. And the one thing that I do find interesting is that I think both sides are trying to use evidence from the British trial. So I'm not at all in law.
Yes.
And at the same time, I find law very intriguing as an American Indian. Looking at treaty law, right?
Yes.
So
and jurisdiction.
Yes. So in terms of jurisdiction and the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, I'm like, when I'm listening to certain things, I'm like, ooh, that's the British trial. They said they couldn't use it. And I'm like, oh wow, the judge isn't going to say anything? So, just in terms of that, it's interesting to me. And at the same time, listening in real time to, real legal scholars who have certified credentials and, real... legal experts.
Yes.
And even people on the ground, like citizen journalists, that's like, hey, like, I'm right here in front of the, like, like, they actually just walk, giving, like, those types of testimonials and digital storytelling, right, to verify actually what's going on the ground. Like,
I love that. That's what I love. That's anthropological.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, and it's very sociological, and interpersonal as well.
That is true.
So
that is true.
It's interesting to me in terms of what is palatable in terms of quote unquote mainstream media, MSM, and other trials that are not, or escape. The regular 5 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central news cycle, right?
Right.
So
this is...
I just appreciate the opportunity for being able to come on and
listen. I have many more questions. You've said so much, and but we're gonna cut it down because this is just an introduction. Really, this is just a filler episode. Which will coincide with a breaking news story, which will coincide with a more in-depth interview with our good brother and friend right here, Dr. Nolan Fontaine. Who are you gonna publish a book from your dissertation? I know you did just curriculum development and so on, but what are you gonna do with that dissertation in terms of publication?
I'm considering a curriculum and workbook.
And have you approached any thoughts about who's going to publish your work? Are you going to make the Neoliberal Corporation?
I'm still discussing that. I'm still discussing that with my publishing team.
Yes. Okay, but you might start your own publishing company.
We'll
Think
see.
tank.
We'll see.
Something in Chester.
We'll see.
Yes.
Yeah, sky's the limit.
The sky is the limit.
And why let the sky be the limit when it's a firmament?
To invest in others what has been invested in me. That is important. Adding value when you've been added. When value has been added to you. And I know, your community is important to you.
Absolutely.
And so, and you talk about the tribe is important to you. Facilitating development is important to you. And so that's good. So those are some good stuff, man. Some good stuff. And what about well, I was going to talk to you about other stuff, but I'll leave that for another stuff.
Okay.
Your fraternal experience and so on, and your brotherhood there. But we will talk about that another time.
All right.
And but thank you for listening to the show, man. Any last? You have the last words.
I just like to say, thank you to folks for listening, and
yes.
Looking forward and coming back and
of course
sharing additional analysis and
please, we need it. We need your analysis. So we will have. He's going to be a contributor to the show. So please, we are available all over the world on all podcast streams, and check us out at theneoliberal.com. TheNeoliberal.com or RonaldoCMcKenzie.com. And we have several articles, blogs, feeds, RonaldoCMcKenzie.blogspot.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook. We have 5 pages and profiles, Reddit, TikTok, so on and so forth. We are everywhere. There's nowhere where we are not. And we are all about facilitating development. We are all about what is the ultimate of all things. The ultimate of all things is that we become one with reality in all of our individuality. And of course, you can follow Mr. Nolan Fontaine at Nolan Fontaine 12. It is at NOLAN FONTAINE 12. Follow him, guys. He is the new scholar on the block, Dr. Nolan Fontaine. It's just a pleasure having him. And we want to thank Mr. Dante Nelson for joining us on the show, providing listenership and color. Indeed. Take care and walk good. The Neoliberal Corporation, serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges.